The moment he turned back toward her, something in the air shifted, the kind of shift people feel in their chest before they even understand why. In the quiet glow of the small-town streetlights, Mara knew she had just lost something, though she couldn't yet name what it was. Maybe control? Maybe certainty? Maybe the version of her life she thought she was holding together. Either way, when Rowan paused, looked over his shoulder, and started walking back toward her, it felt like the world held its breath. Mara hadn't planned on seeing him that evening. She had only stepped out for a late walk, trying to clear her thoughts after a long day. But small towns have their own ways of arranging encounters, and sometimes they bring people together at the exact moment they're trying the hardest to stay far apart. Rowan had been standing near the old bridge when she first spotted him, hands in his coat pockets, head slightly bowed. He looked like someone struggling to find the right words for a conversation he had rehearsed too many times. Mara had intended to walk past quickly, maybe offer a polite nod and keep going. But fate has a quiet sense of humor. He turned at the same moment she did, and for a heartbeat, they simply stared at each other. Two people who used to talk about everything, now suddenly unsure of what to say. Mara swallowed, trying to steady herself. She hadn't spoken to Rowan in weeks. Not since that night when everything between them seemed painfully close to becoming something more, and instead fell apart in an unexpected silence neither of them knew how to break. She stepped aside, ready to slip past him in the gentlest way possible. But then Rowan whispered her name, so softly she almost missed it. Mara? Just hearing it again pulled an ache through her, and that was when he turned, slow and hesitant, and walked back toward her. The moment she realized her heart wasn't prepared, not even close. Now he stood only a few steps away. Not too close, not too far, just close enough for his voice to tremble a little. "I didn't think you came out this late anymore," he said. Mara forced a small smile. "I don't, usually, just needed some air." He nodded, like he understood far more than the words said. They had always been that way, sharing a quiet language made of glances and pauses, of unspoken things that sometimes felt louder than anything spoken aloud. The breeze brushed between them, carrying faint smells of pine, winter, and memories that didn't belong to any specific day, but all the days they once knew each other well. Rowan shifted his weight. "I've been wanting to talk to you," he said. Her stomach tightened. About what? He looked down first, then slowly lifted his eyes again. About that night, and how I walked away, and how I shouldn't have. Mara felt the words cut through her, not in a harsh way, but in the way truth always does. Honest, unsettling, necessary. She took a breath, then another. "Rowan, you didn't owe me anything," she whispered. He shook his head quickly. "I know what you're trying to say, but I did, or at least it felt like I did, and I handled everything wrong." For a second, neither of them spoke. It wasn't anger between them, and it wasn't indifference either. It was something far more fragile, the kind of feeling that grows when two people come close to saying the right thing at the wrong time and then spend weeks replaying it in their minds. Rowan looked toward the bridge, then back at her, his voice quieter now. "If you'd let me, I'd like to explain." Mara hesitated, the kind of hesitation that comes from wanting to protect the heart while also wanting answers. "Explain what?" she whispered. Rowan took one careful step closer, stopping just before the moment would have felt bold. "Explain why that night still doesn't feel finished to me," he said softly, "and why walking away was the first thing I regretted the next morning." Something warm and uncertain moved through her. She wasn't ready for all of this, but she also wasn't ready to turn away. Not this time. And as Rowan waited, quiet and hopeful in the soft evening glow, Mara realized the night was about to open a door neither of them expected to face again. If you're enjoying this story so far, please like the video and subscribe for more heartfelt tales. The question now hung between them. Would she let him continue? Mara didn't answer right away. The silence between them stretched, soft but weighted, like a delicate thread pulled too tight. Rowan didn't rush her. He never had. That was one of the things about him that always unsettled her in the gentlest way. He made space for her feelings even when she couldn't quite name them. The streetlight above flickered, casting a pale glow that shimmered through the trees behind them. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked once, sharp and lonely, before the quiet swallowed the sound again. The night felt deeper around them, as if the world wanted to lean in and listen. Mara looked at Rowan closely for the first time in weeks. He looked the same, yet not quite. His shoulders seemed a little heavier. His eyes carried something she couldn't read easily anymore. Not sadness, exactly, not regret alone. More like someone who had replayed a moment too many times and kept reaching a different ending every time. "What do you mean it didn't feel finished?" Mara asked, her voice steady but low. Rowan exhaled slowly, almost like he'd been waiting for that question. "That night, when we stopped talking, when we just stood there not knowing what the other person wanted, I thought giving you space was the right thing." "You didn't say anything," Mara said gently. "I was scared," he admitted. "I didn't want to say the wrong thing and lose you." Mara's chest tightened. She had spent so many evenings questioning her own silence from that night, the way she hesitated, the way she let him walk away without calling his name. She thought he wasn't interested in her the way she feared she might be interested in him. But hearing this now unraveled something inside her. "So you left because you were afraid?" she whispered. He nodded. "I left because it felt safer than saying something honest and not knowing how you felt." Mara looked down at her hands, fingers brushing each other nervously. "I thought you walked away because it didn't matter to you." Rowan stepped closer, just one soft step. "It mattered," he said, "more than I let myself admit at the time." The breeze picked up again, brushing her hair gently across her cheek. Rowan hesitated before lifting his hand, not touching her, just hovering, as if silently asking permission. She didn't move away, but she didn't move closer either, and he respected that, letting his hand fall back to his side. Mara swallowed. "Why now, Rowan? Why talk about this tonight?" He gave a half shrug, half exhale. "Because I saw you walking here, and I realized if I didn't try tonight, I might not get another chance, and I've already lost too many nights replaying one moment." His honesty landed in her chest like a soft ache. "I didn't know you felt that way," she whispered. "That's the problem," he said quietly. "We both kept guessing, and guessing hurts a lot more than the truth." For a moment, they simply stood there, close enough to feel each other's presence, but still separated by all the unspoken things drifting between them. It felt like standing on the edge of something fragile, something that could either mend or break depending on their next words. Mara drew in a slow breath. "If we're going to talk about that night, you need to tell me everything, not half of it, not the softened version." Rowan's eyes lifted to hers, steady and sincere. "I will, I promise." "But not while we're standing in the cold," she added softly. A faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Then where?" She glanced toward the bridge, where the water reflected only faint ribbons of moonlight. "The benches by the river," she said. "It's quiet there." Rowan nodded once, as if grateful she hadn't walked away again. They began to walk side by side, slowly, without rushing, letting the quiet guide them. Their steps were soft on the path, And every few seconds, their hands brushed lightly, not on purpose, but with a kind of hesitant awareness neither acknowledged aloud. As they neared the river, Rowan looked toward her again, his voice barely above a breath. Mara, there's something I've wanted to tell you for a long time, something I should have said that night. She stopped walking. He stopped too. What is it? She whispered. Rowan took a breath, one that carried the weight of weeks, maybe months, of unsaid truths. His next words trembled into the cool night air. Mara, that night, I almost told you that He didn't finish. Not yet. The moment held itself still, waiting for what would come next. Rowan's unfinished sentence hung in the air, fragile and trembling, like a secret trying to decide if it was brave enough to step into the open. Mara felt her breath catch, her heart slowing and speeding at the same time. The night around them seemed to hush itself, as if giving Rowan the space he needed to continue. But instead of speaking, Rowan looked away, toward the river, toward the trembling reflections of moonlight scattered across its surface. He wasn't avoiding her. He was gathering courage. Mara sensed it, and for a moment she didn't push him. They walked the final few steps toward the benches by the water and sat down, leaving a respectful bit of space between them, though they both felt the invisible pull narrowing it. The river moved lazily, dark and calm, carrying the soft sounds of water brushing stone. It was the kind of place where honesty felt easier, even when it hurt. Rowan finally exhaled. I'm sorry I stopped talking earlier. I needed a second. Mara turned slightly toward him. Rowan, you don't have to force it. Just say it when you're ready. He nodded, grateful, but his hands were still clasped together, tense. When I walked away that night, he began slowly, I didn't leave because I didn't care. I left because I cared so much it terrified me. Everything felt too real, too close, and I didn't know if you felt anything like that. Mara's chest tightened. You thought I didn't? I thought I was imagining everything, he said gently. I thought maybe I was seeing what I wanted, not what you actually felt. And the last thing I wanted to do was make you uncomfortable. Mara looked down, fingers curling lightly around the edge of the bench. I wasn't uncomfortable, she whispered. I was unsure, and that scared me too. His eyes softened. You were unsure about me? About what it meant, she admitted. About what would change if either of us said the wrong thing. I didn't want to ruin what we had. Rowan nodded slowly, his voice quiet. I didn't want to ruin anything either. That's why I stayed silent. And that silence ruined more than honesty ever could have, Mara added, her voice trembling but calm. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, accepting her words without defending himself. When he looked at her again, there was a softness, a vulnerability she had never seen so clearly before. Mara, he said, that night, when I almost spoke, I was going to tell you that Again, he paused. This time, not out of fear. This time, out of care. I don't want to say something too heavy all at once, he admitted, because I need to know something first. Her heartbeat quickened. Know what? His gaze held hers carefully, as though seeking permission to step towards something deeper. Are you willing to talk about this honestly? Not halfway, not with fear guiding us, just truth. Her breath shook a little. Yes, I think it's time we stop hiding behind what-ifs. Rowan let out a breath he had been holding. Then I'll tell you everything. But I want you to tell me your truth, too. Not what you think will protect me or keep things simple. She nodded once. I will. For a few quiet seconds, they simply sat there, Two hearts finally aligned in their willingness to be honest, but still navigating the careful line between fear and hope. Rowan rubbed his palms together nervously. Before I tell you what I almost said that night, I want to start somewhere smaller, something simpler. All right, Mara said. When we stopped talking, "Did you miss me?" he asked softly. Mara felt the question settle into her like a slow, warm ache. He asked it carefully, not demanding, just hoping. She looked at the river, then at him. "Yes," she whispered, "more than I wanted to admit." Rowan's shoulders lowered slightly, a quiet relief loosening the tension in him. "And you?" she asked. "Did you miss me?" He didn't hesitate. Every single day. The words washed over her like a gentle, unexpected warmth. Before she could respond, Rowan reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something small, something she couldn't quite see. He held it in his palm, unsure whether to show her yet. "Mara," he said softly, "there's something you don't know about that night, something I kept with me afterward." She stared at his hand, her heart rising in her throat. "What is that?" she whispered. Rowan looked down at it, then back at her, emotion tightening his voice. "It's the reason I couldn't forget that night, and the reason I came back tonight." He slowly opened his hand, and Mara's breath caught the moment she saw what he had been holding. In Rowan's open palm lay a small, folded piece of paper, worn at the edges, softened by time, and clearly carried more often than it was meant to be. Mara stared at it, confused at first, then quietly unsettled. "What is that?" she whispered again, this time with a tremor she couldn't hide. Rowan looked down at the paper as though it held an entire story he hadn't told. "I wrote this the night everything happened," he said softly, "right before I walked away." Mara's breath stilled. "You wrote something that night?" He nodded. "I didn't plan to. I just couldn't say what I felt out loud, so I wrote it instead. A few lines, nothing long, but honest." Mara swallowed, her fingers curling in her lap. "Why didn't you give it to me?" "Because when the moment came," Rowan murmured, "I panicked. I felt too much all at once, and I didn't know if you felt anything at all. So I kept it, and for some reason, I couldn't throw it away." He gently closed his hand around the note again, as if protecting it. The river shimmered behind him, quiet and patient. Mara's voice softened. "What did you write?" Rowan looked at her, really looked, and she saw the sincerity in his eyes, the kind that carried no pressure, no push, only truth waiting to be shared. "I'll let you read it," he said, "if you want to." Her heart beat unevenly as she reached out. Rowan hesitated for a second, then placed the folded note into her palm. The paper felt warm from his hand, delicate, as though it might fall apart if she held it too tightly. She didn't open it right away. Instead, she stared at it, trying to steady her breath. "I don't want this to change everything," Mara whispered. Rowan shook his head gently. "Mara, it already changed everything. The moment I wrote it, the moment I carried it around for weeks afterward, everything was already different." Her eyes lifted to his. "What if I'm not ready for what it says?" "Then we take it slowly," he replied, voice steady and warm. "But you deserve to know the truth, and I deserve to finally say it." For a long moment, Mara simply held the note, feeling the weight of his words. Then, with careful fingers, she unfolded the paper. The handwriting was familiar, slightly uneven, the way Rowan's always was when he wrote quickly. She read the first few words, and her breath caught. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't poetic, it was something far more vulnerable. "Mara, I think I'm falling for you, and I don't know what to do with that." Her fingertips trembled as she read the rest, only a few short lines. Gentle, hesitant confessions about how he had looked at her that night and seen something he hadn't been prepared for, how he didn't know if she felt the same, how he feared ruining their friendship by saying too much. Mara slowly folded the note back up, her eyes glistening with emotion she wasn't sure how to name. Rowan watched her carefully, not expectantly, not fearfully, just openly. "I wrote it because I couldn't keep pretending," he said, "and I walked away because I was afraid pretending would be easier for you." Mara blinked slowly, trying to steady herself. "Rowan, you should have told me." "I know," he whispered, "but I'm telling you now." The river seemed quieter somehow, the world narrowing to the space between them, small, warm, trembling. Mara held the note against her chest. "Do you still feel that way?" His answer came softly, without hesitation. "Yes, I never stopped." The words unraveled the tight knot inside her, leaving her breathless. But Rowan didn't move closer. He didn't reach for her. He didn't ask for anything. Instead, he simply said, "Now you know my truth, and I want to hear yours, whatever it is, even if it's nothing like mine." Her heart thudded hard once, then again. Her truth felt tangled, buried beneath fear and hope and memories she had tried to ignore. She looked at Rowan, her voice caught between confession and silence. "Rowan," she whispered, "there's something I've never said either, something I should have told you that night." Rowan leaned in the slightest bit, not intruding, just listening. "What is it?" he asked softly. Mara hesitated, then took a shaky breath. "It's about the moment right before you walked away," she said. "Something happened to me that I never told you." Rowan's eyes filled with quiet concern. "What happened?" he asked. Mara looked down at her hands, voice trembling. "When you turned to leave, I felt something break inside me, something I didn't understand then, and I think I finally know what it was." She lifted her eyes slowly. But before she could say more, her voice stilled, caught on the edge of a truth she wasn't sure she was brave enough to speak. Mara's voice faltered, trembling at the edge of a confession she had carried for far too long. Rowan weighed, still and quiet beside her, giving her the same gentle patience he always had. The river whispered softly behind them, its rhythm steady in a way her heart was not. She took a slow breath, steadying herself before she finally spoke. "That night," she said softly, "when you walked away, something in me just—" She pressed a hand to her chest, trying to explain the ache that never truly faded. "Something slipped, something I thought I had under control." Rowan's expression softened. "What do you mean?" Mara looked at him, eyes shining in the moonlight. "I lost the illusion that I didn't care." Rowan froze, breath catching. She continued, her voice almost a whisper. "I spent so long convincing myself that what I felt for you was just comfort, or familiarity, or the kind of closeness friends fall into when they're not careful." She shook her head gently. "But when you turned your back that night, Rowan, it hurt in a way nothing casual ever could." Rowan's throat tightened visibly. He didn't interrupt. He just listened. "I didn't know what the feeling meant then," Mara went on. "I only knew it scared me. And instead of calling out to you, instead of stopping you, I let the moment pass, then spent the next weeks trying to pretend I didn't miss what almost happened." Rowan's voice came quiet, hesitant. "And now?" Mara closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, they held a clarity she had been avoiding for far too long. "Now I know what I lost that night," she said softly. "I lost the chance to tell you that I felt something too, something real, something I wasn't ready to admit. Rowan inhaled sharply, emotion loosening across his face. Mara? She shook her head gently. I'm not saying this expecting anything. I needed you to know that your feelings weren't one-sided, and they weren't imagined. Rowan bowed his head for a moment, overwhelmed by the quiet truth between them. When he looked up again, his eyes were warmer than she had ever seen them. I've wanted to hear those words for so long, he whispered. Mara smiled faintly, the smallest tremor still visible. I didn't know how to say them until now. A wind drifted off the water, cool and steady, brushing between them. And in that stillness, Rowan shifted just slightly closer, not enough to crowd her, just enough that she could feel his presence more fully. Mara, he said gently, I know we both made mistakes that night, but we're here now, and I don't want to lose another moment to silence. She breathed in, steady and deep. What do we do with this, with everything we've both kept quiet? Rowan reached out slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. Her hand met his halfway, their fingers brushing, warm and cautious. We start small, Rowan said softly. We don't force anything. We don't rush. But we stop pretending, Mara. No more hiding, no more guessing. Her fingers curled around his, a gentle acceptance. I think I'd like that, she whispered. A small smile lifted his lips, honest, tender, hopeful. He turned his hand slightly, letting their fingers interlace with a quiet care that felt like its own confession. Mara, he said, voice warm with emotion, I care about you, more deeply than I ever planned, and I want to be here, with you, fully, honestly, without walking away again. Tears welled at the corners of her eyes, soft, grateful, unforced. I care about you too, she whispered. I always did. I was just too afraid to admit it. Rowan gently squeezed her hand. You don't have to be afraid anymore. They sat there together, hands entwined, the river murmuring beside them, the night wrapping around them like a quiet promise. No dramatic declarations, no rushed decisions. Just truth, just honesty, just the beginning of something they both nearly lost and finally found in each other again. Mara exhaled slowly, feeling a peace she hadn't felt in weeks. She looked at Rowan, her voice soft and full. Rowan, thank you for walking back toward me tonight. He smiled gently. I think I was always meant to. Their hands remained joined as the moonlight shimmered over the river, marking the start of a new chapter neither of them had dared to imagine. One built on honesty, on courage, and on the simple truth that sometimes the quietest confessions change everything.